Hey everyone, this is Austin Scher here with We Write About Music, and today I am speaking with Milk Jennings. He has just released a fantastic debut album called Sleep Talker, and I'm super excited to talk to him all about it. Milk, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
Of course, doing good. Thank you for having me, Austin.
Very welcome. What part of the world are you in at the moment?
I am currently in Seattle, Washington.
What's
Uh,
going on in Seattle besides rain?
not much.
No.
I've only lived here for about 9 months, so yeah, I feel like still getting used to it. But actually grew up in Washington, so
Okay, cool.
I'm kind of like back in the area, and yeah, it's great. Where are you located?
I'm in Los Angeles,
Okay,
but I go up and down the coast frequently. I have a brother that lives in Portland, so I'm there. And I'd actually like to go to Seattle in the next couple months or so. Hopefully, it should be nice weather.
nice.
Pacific Northwest is kind of a beast of its own, though, when it comes to that. I have to
It is,
say
yeah. Definitely visit here in the summer. It's truly beautiful.
that's the plan. I've got family there too, so
Oh,
been
nice.
meaning to visit. Well, you've
Awesome.
got this record out. It's called Sleep Talker, and it is seriously amazing from start to finish. I promise I'm not just saying that. I really, really have enjoyed it, like the
Thank you.
multiple times that I've listened. One thing that I just want to kick it off with is are there constant themes throughout it? Are you trying to put across a message, or is it a series of like individual stories you're telling?
Uh, there definitely is aren't really like too strong of themes across the album. Yeah, I'd say like each song kind of is its own thing. Um, More so because when I'm writing lyrics, I don't edit too much,
Sure.
and a lot of the writing and singing is like from the demo phase. I'm definitely like into keeping a lot of that stuff, and so some of it's like very stream of conscious,
Mhm.
and I think that's where like a lot of artists will go back, or like when they're going to re-record it and kind of like fine tune some of those lyrics,
Sure.
and I often don't do that and don't like to do that.
I
Like
understand.
I kind of like the mystery of it. Um, and so yeah, I think like later on I can when as I'm listening, sometimes I'm like pulling little things out of it, like, oh, I was in this headspace at the time and was saying these things. And so, you can like pull bits of narrative out of that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, for the most part, there's a few songs, about my partner, a couple songs about like childhood best friends, and like anxieties of being an adult, but some
The
looking back at
infinite
the past.
anxieties.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm looking forward, like it's
I
some,
gotcha.
yeah, it's a little all over the place. But I think that's all attributed to just this kind of like more stream of conscious like writing style for lyrics
Makes
at
sense.
least.
Well, I mean, like during the recording process, do you find yourself putting an emphasis on one thing over the other? Like, I need the lyrics to be slick, or I need it to sound this certain way. Obviously, you're one person, and I know that you've had outside help putting this together, but there's got to be, you've got to put your energy towards one way.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like I put my energy towards just like like the vibe, for lack of a better word, or like the aesthetic, like the
Yeah,
feeling of it. Like I feel like I'm attracted initially to like sounds that really feel either fresh or new, or um yeah, and less like the lyrics or even like the songwriting or the structure. Like I'm very much, most of my songs start as just like a little teeny, like sometimes 10-second snippet of like, oh, this is like, this feeling is so perfect, and then kind of trying to
yeah.
build things around that, um, so
No, it
which
totally makes sense. Like, I don't know, it's tough nowadays just in music because it feels like so many people listen to music for the way that music makes them feel rather than listening to stories. And it's like you could personally be bearing your heart and soul and every terrible experience you've ever experienced into a song. And a lot of people wouldn't care as long as it felt that made them feel a certain way. And
yeah.
yeah, one thing that I particularly really like about this record is that it's not a melancholy feel throughout it. Like it has slower songs and it has ones to be introspective to, but then there's also moments that really shine with like, energetic, upbeat instrumentation. I don't know. You've done a good job of pacing it, is what I'm saying.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I definitely like. I don't. Some artists like, you know, can write in like a certain style and kind of keep within that style for an album. And
Yeah.
I definitely have always had trouble with that. And so I think albums that I've written in the past, not obviously not for this project, but
Yeah.
for other bands and stuff, it's, I feel like they're always kind of a little more varied because of that. But it's funny because like parts of me really want to write an album that's like really like focused and like narrow. Even though I often like music that's not, but just as like a challenge to kind of like go against the grain of what
Yeah.
I personally like how I write, you know?
That fully makes sense. I talk about this often about I think that we're losing it on the album experience. And it's so hard nowadays to just like, oh, I mean, you know, I'm not comparing you to like the Pink Floyds or anything like that, but like The Wall, for example, you listen to every song and it all kind of just comes together and it's one long experience rather than broken up songs. So I
Totally.
see what you
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah. I think also like the heavy emphasis maybe on like singles and stuff too. People are,
Yes.
yeah, not writing. Yeah, I feel like a lot of bands are just like almost writing for singles and then kind of piecing things together later,
They are.
which is totally
No,
cool.
and it's true. They're writing for TikTok and they're writing
Yeah,
the catchy hooks and melodies. And it's like, on one hand, you can't fault them because making it in the music industry is beyond difficult because everyone can make music nowadays.
yeah,
But at the same time, you're on the other end of this. You're spending your time and effort and money putting something together. At the end of the day, you should be thrilled with it. It should be something that you want to listen to.
totally. Yeah, no, I yeah, absolutely agree. It's
Yeah.
very weird.
So,
Yeah.
I also want to talk a bit about genre influence, kind of just going off what you just said. This record definitely takes twists and turns with who you're inspired by, who you're influenced by. If you sort of had to give like an elevator pitch to the listener, how would you describe it? Because it's tough because it does guns, and there's no right answer
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's a hard one.
here.
It's you know, I think like a lot of my writing is kind of like rooted in more like classic indie rock pop. But I personally definitely take inspiration from you know, a lot of like 60s and 70s bands. That's a lot of music that I've been, you know, very into. So it leans a little bit more in that direction. And then I think that Sam Cohn, who produced it, definitely kind of pushes it even more in that direction because a lot of the styles that he writes, because he also performed like a ton of instruments on the record. Like we kind of split it 50-50
Got it.
down the middle. And so just the way he performs is also like kind of leans a bit older. And then also he, you know, he has, I feel like a lot of his production is has some psych influence because that's what he was into in some of his former bands.
Can
So
feel that.
yeah, so there's, you know, there's like kind of this healthy mix of like all those things. I don't think it leans too hard in one of those directions. It's kind of got like, it's weird to like say it's like psych pop or psych rock because there's so many albums that are like very psych rock or very psych pop, but
Right.
but there's definitely like influence of that or influences like the 60s. A lot of the bass lines I feel like are very 60s 70s feeling, like the way that Sam's writes bass lines are very much like that, both melodically and also just the timbre of like the bass that he records and then how he mixes it. You know, it's like those kind of influences are coming in,
I
but it's
agree. And
still like
you're not wrong to say psych pop influence because
yeah,
I think maybe 10 years ago, it'd be like, I don't know about that. But nowadays, everything is psych pop influence. Like, just like with
yeah,
like the future of production and where people take things, like pop is not pop, rock is not rock.
yeah,
Like, it depends who's producing and it depends who's listening to give their kind of
totally.
objective definition. So I would say yes. If you're into that music, you're probably gonna like this.
Cool. Yeah, it's
Um,
I always feel like weird talking about genres because I, you know, some people are kind of
right.
weird about like, oh, that's not that. It's like it's so
Well, music is subjective. You're not right or you're not wrong. It doesn't doesn't really matter at the end of the day, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Now, I can only assume that you've been working on this for the past couple years, if not longer. Is that correct?
Yeah. I started like writing the songs about two and a half years ago. But then we made it so fast though. Actually, like when me and Sam actually paired up, and he agreed to like produce it and mix it. He's like an insanely fast worker. I've never seen or like worked with someone that works so fast and at such like a high quality level. Um, and yeah, I feel like we made the record, like the actual recording and mixing and stuff, in like about 2 months total time.
Wow.
Um, and then it was just kind of the labels that wanted to push it back, the release date, which is they basically pushed it a year out from when we first finished it,
That's so annoying.
which was like hard to swallow at first, but it ended up being good in the end, because I think it maybe wouldn't have done as well, or
I agree. I mean, I think that's why we're seeing such a massive influx of people putting out new music this year, and all the tours that were delayed and getting shows out there. It's like
for sure.
we'll never. I don't know if we'll ever be 100% fully like back, but you know what? I can't imagine being in your shoes waiting around for a year plus. It's like you've got this thing that's just been sitting there. So good for you for having the patience of a saint. Can't even imagine.
Yeah, no, it was also like, I mean, I've been doing this, been in this rodeo for most of my life, and it was my first time also working with producer that I really admired, and then also working with labels. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I think I was also so excited to be having like these opportunities, where I was a little bit more, I think, less picky about what I wanted, or my demands or anything. It's just kind of like, I'm very like thankful to like have people that are like behind this thing and like putting their own time into it, and like, so yeah, it's probably like just very excited in general.
Yeah,
It's
well,
like,
that's what I think people don't realize is that it's not just one guy behind the scenes making music. There's like inner workings and marketing and PR and labels and management and emails after email after email, and it's just like
really,
it becomes overwhelming. So to have a team that's there to back you and hopefully guide you in the right direction has to be a good feeling. Because from what
yeah,
I understand, yeah, you've been involved in this for quite some time.
absolutely, yeah. That reminds me of like something I've been thinking of recently, in that, just like the role of a producer, and like working with like a real producer,
Yeah.
this round. It was like amazing how much he did, and I think how much producers do in general. And I think like a lot of musicians know this, but it's interesting to me that I think a lot of artists or like labels, um, don't want to like put too much emphasis on producers, because they want to keep like the limelight on the artist. um,
Sure.
like they want to keep that focus, on like, or the narrative of like, this artist is like doing everything,
Yeah.
which I think is like, that's it's not wrong.
I know what
But
you're saying.
yeah, it's like, I don't know, like I feel like as an artist, like I want to like give Sam full, like as much credit as he like deserves,
Totally.
because he did so much on it. It's just always been kind of an interesting thing, I think.
I'm happy you brought that up though, because no, it's very true. Like producers are the other half of the equation, and like for example, like look at any Beyonce song. There's like 37 producers and like
Yeah,
45 ghostwriters in the background, and you're
yeah,
like, okay, yeah, she's super talented and she's a great dancer and she can sing and blah blah blah. But like objectively, what did she do? You know, I mean, when you've got this team of like super producers that are making the songs, and then you hear about all the ghostwriters in the background, it's like, yeah, I'm happy that you're giving credit where it's due, because it really does come together on that end.
yeah. I agree. It's like, yeah, it's like, I think people assume like maybe fans are turned off by like this team effort, or they like want people to think that this one person is like
Yeah.
so, which like I can see. I mean, as a fan, like I definitely glob onto
Of
artists
course.
like as themselves,
Yes.
but so maybe I'm a culprit of it, but
Well, I mean, that goes in part to social media because they're putting out their personal presence and you get to like that person. So you just assume they did everything and they're the ones on stage if you go to see them. So it's, it's
Yeah,
easy
yeah,
to assume that guy did it. But
yeah.
again, 98% of people don't care. They just want music to make them feel good. And it's a different perspective when you're behind the scenes. So
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
love it, man. Are you playing shows or is that something that you have planned?
I am, yeah, yeah. I actually played my first show like 2 months ago. I opened up for this guy Dent May,
That
and
sounds really familiar, actually.
yeah, he's like a
Yeah,
decently known LA artist actually.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, super nice guy. And yeah, I got booked to open him as my first show, which was such a dream because I played so many first shows and like
Yeah.
just at like shitty tiny bars like in the corner and
Yep.
like
I'm
you know
sure of it.
like
Pay your
that was,
dues.
yeah, so that was great. And then I have a album release show on the 15th,
Nice.
and
I
then
bet
I've
that's
got,
coming out.
yeah, a couple shows booked in June and also August. So yeah,
Locally, or are you making your way
yeah,
around?
all locally. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I've
cool.
been, you know, trying to like find a booking agent or something to help
Yeah.
me, but it's yeah. I feel like I'm like old enough in this industry where I'm like kind of exhausted by the idea of like booking small tiny
Another agent.
tours like on my own. It's like back in the day I was like so excited to do that, but now it's kind of like oh maybe spend that time like writing more music or
Totally.
it's like
I mean, yeah, you gotta lead yourself. Obviously, you have your best interests coming first, but at the same time, like what's going to further you the most. Touring is a different beast nowadays, like with just venues and everyone else is trying to get a spot. So I don't know,
definitely
man. It's
yeah
it's it's interesting, and to think that we're like at the middle of the year at this point, like we're recording this on June 1st, is wild. Do you
yeah
have any like lofty goals or things that you really like to accomplish? Not necessarily by the end of this year, but I guess in a year's time.
yeah. I definitely my plan for the summer, since the album will be out, is just to play as many like local shows as I can, and then
Sure.
also write the next album. I've been writing it like most of this year already, and so I want to finish
Yeah.
and have like 40 or 50 songs by the end of summer, and then Sam is like down to do the next one, and so yeah, hope like finish writing by the end of the summer, and then by fall or winter schedule some time with him in the studio and yeah, finish another album. And I feel like we can make it in a short amount of time together
Yeah.
because it I think that just works with our flow and to not labor over things too much.
No, that totally makes sense. I mean, it's tough because it's like this one obviously has been sitting around for a little bit, but it's gonna get its formal release. But then you kind of want it to sit around and you want it to like let it breathe and get it in people's ears. But then there's also that nagging thing in the back of you that's like more consistency. Like, let's
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know, man. It's tough.
I
Yeah, and
mean,
it's not like you've just been sitting around for the past year either. Like it's hard to stop an artist's mind after a while. So I
it
get
is.
it.
Yeah, so hopefully, yeah, hopefully there's we finish an album by the end of the year, and then yeah, I think I wonder like I don't actually know how artists that work with labels that have multiple albums out, but I wonder if like the period of time that you need to release a record shortens if it's not the first album, for some reasons, like if they need less lead time because there's maybe more of a fan base in place, or like
Yeah,
um, yeah, I don't know. I wonder if yeah, I wonder if it'll like I hope it doesn't take it a year in between.
I
Kind of
hope not. I guess you'll find out pretty soon.
like
Personally, I think that once people listen, they'll be like, "All right, I need more. Let's get it." And then
yeah, yeah,
the decisions will be made based off feedback. So I guess we'll see.
yeah, for sure.
I got a couple more for you at this point.
Cool.
I want to know because we had briefly talked about this before we started recording, but I think that we have very similar interest in the same artists and this and that. Who have you been listening to? Who's been at the top of your playlist? Are there any local artists that you'd like to recommend? Anything along those lines?
Yeah, sure. I've been into some older music that I've recently been into is like this these 60 bands, 60s bands, the Easy Beats
Okay.
and the Spencer Davis Group are both two really really cool
Never heard of
60s bands.
either.
Yeah, definitely check them out.
Okay.
And I've been really into Ezra Furman the past
Sure.
couple years. Been really into her music, um, and it's always hard.
Yeah, no pressure.
Local band. I have this a friend here in Seattle, and they're in this band TV Star that I'm really really digging. Their stuff's really great. They have a like a mini LP coming out soon.
Sweet.
Really really cool stuff. This band Spirit Award, as a Seattle-based band here, has been very welcoming to like me um, and yeah, like kind of psych rock, like a little heavier, faster type psych
Yeah.
rock. Um, and then yeah, there's also I have a friend who is very inspiring. His name he goes by the name Tommy Pixels.
Okay.
Kind of crazy, wild hyper pop, like really a bit out there kind of stuff.
Always a place for it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I feel like I'm inspired by all those bands, even if I'm not making music necessarily like them. Like, you know, just yeah, people that are inspiring me with like pushing creative boundaries and
Totally.
think
Well,
that's
listen, yeah, if you listen to the same music over and over, your music itself is never going to change. You kind of need
yeah,
to, I can't tell you what to listen to, but listening to everything ultimately I think makes you a better musician, and the end product always turns out a little bit better.
yeah, definitely. I feel like more and more as I get older, like I try and dive into older music,
Sure.
like, further back, just to like I think I'm always like afraid to be too obsessed with any modern artists because I tend to like want to take inspiration from them
Right.
to an unhealthy level of like then you're like mimicking
I get it.
and then you know you don't
Sure.
sound like fresh.
Yep. Yep. And then people are like, hey, you sound just like this band that put out a record. You're like, well, no one's going to compare me to some unknown 60s band that
Yeah,
like three people have heard of. So
yeah,
I think you're safe.
it's crazy too. Like sometimes I'll discover a song. I'm like, wow, that sounds so familiar. And then I realize like this, you know, some modern artist of a song that I've really liked for a long time,
Yeah.
like directly ripped some song and you know, some like really deep cut of a band. And not that I'm against that, but you know, but it's yeah, it's just it's cool. I think it's like a
Yep.
good way to like, you know, find inspiration and
Right.
stuff.
And in 50 years, it will happen to that band that ripped
Yeah.
off that band because there's only so many chord progressions that exist in this world. So what can you do? What can
Yeah.
you do? It has been an absolute pleasure getting to speak with you all about this record. And I have one more question that I'd like to ask. Basically, the question is for the person that is going to discover you from this, and for the person that is going to listen to your music for the first time, what is an opening message that you'd like to say to them?
Hmm. Say that this record was very much a like a new chapter for me of embracing imperfection. I think in music and and not taking it too seriously. And so I think kind of going into it with that mindset of yeah, just like the beauty of imperfection and maybe that's what I would say.
I think it's a great answer, man. There's no right, there's no wrong answer.
I was like I was on a path, weird left. And you know when you get lost and you're like, uh-oh.
What? It's okay. It's honesty. If I had prepped you before, it wouldn't be nearly as original. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
well, again, I want to thank you so much, and I want to plug your music. Obviously, the record is called Sleep Talker. By the time this comes out, the record will be out. The artist's name is Milk Jennings. We're gonna have links so that people can listen and follow along and share and do all that fun stuff. But I sincerely want to thank you again for your time. This has been
Yeah,
great.
man. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Austin.
You
Nice to
are
meet you.
nice to meet you too, man. Have a great
Yeah,
rest of your day,
you
and
too.
we'll talk soon. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye bye. Bye
See
bye.
ya.